involvement and participation of coastal communities. As mandated by the Presidential Decree number 93, 2019, to increase the awareness and preparedness of the coastal communities, Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries also works together with other ministries and institutions such as the BMPG, BNPB, BIG, and universities. In addition to Tsunami Awareness Program, our ministry, through the Marine Research Center, in collaboration with the Joint Research Center of the European Union, is developing low-cost tsunami early warning system. We call it IDSL, or inexpensive device for sea level measurement that allow the community to be involved directly in installation and maintenance, even in production. This will provide coastal communities not only a first-hand information on sudden anomaly of sea levels, but also to strengthen awareness and preparedness against future tsunami events. His Excellency Minister, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to inform you that the current webinar has 638 registered participants from 12 different nationalities, such as Indonesia, Italy, Germany, Egypt, Japan, UK, Russia, Turkey, Portugal, Philippines, USA, and India. Finally, I thank all the parties for the contribution in the research and the organization of this workshop, and we are welcome any suggestion and feedback from you, and I hope this seminar would be a strategic forum to discuss and enrich our knowledge about how we can better promote the tsunami mitigation to our communities. And finally, I would like to invite His Excellency Dr. Edi Prabowo to deliver opening remark and also officially open this webinar. Thank you all. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Very good afternoon to all of you. Thank you.
Indonesia, the largest archipelagic state in the world, blessed with lustrous nature.
Suaranya belum ada?
Indonesia, the largest archipelagic state in the world, blessed with lustrous nature, its richness stretches on land and far into the sea. However, hidden from the view is a very complex structure of tectonic plates. Pinched between two continental and oceanic plates, Indonesia sits on the world's most natural disaster-prone area and is at risk to multiple disasters, including the tsunamis. About 2/3 of all tsunami-related global deaths in the last 200 years have occurred in Indonesia, making it a real tsunami hotspot on the planet. Caused by earthquakes and other seismic activities beneath the oceans, tsunamis can cause massive tidal waves, sweeping over the land and causing a great devastations, high losses, and financial damage. Sadly, such damage is often drastic, as the communities do not expect tsunamis and therefore hardly take any protective measures when a tsunami strikes. The Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries, Republic of Indonesia, is developing a community-based approach to tsunami preparedness, where communities' participation is placed at the heart of the national effort to mitigate the impacts of tsunamis in Indonesia. The ministry is also developing a low-cost tsunami early warning system called Inexpensive Device for Sea Level Rise, which allows people to replicate and develop the system themselves. This will provide hands-on information to the people, which so far are only available to experts of tsunamis in the Tsunami Early Warning Centers. Empowering communities and valuing their role is the key to successful mitigations of tsunamis as they meet.
Yes.
Indonesia, the largest archipelagic state in the world. Blessed with lustrous nature, its richness stretches on land and far into the sea. However, hidden from the view is a very complex structure of tectonic plates. Pinched between two continental and oceanic plates, Indonesia sits on the world's most natural disaster-prone area and is at risk to multiple disasters, including the tsunamis. About two-thirds of all tsunami-related global deaths in the last 200 years have occurred in Indonesia, making it a real tsunami hotspot on the planet. Caused by earthquakes and other seismic activities beneath the oceans, tsunamis can cause massive tidal waves, sweeping over the land and causing a great devastations, high losses, and financial damage. Sadly, such damage is often drastic, as the communities do not expect tsunamis and therefore hardly take any protective measures when a tsunami strikes. The Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries, Republic of Indonesia, is developing a community-based approach to tsunami preparedness, where communities' participation is placed at the heart of the national effort to mitigate the impacts of tsunamis in Indonesia. The ministry is also developing a low-cost tsunami early warning system called Inexpensive Device for Sea Level Rise, which allows people to replicate and develop the system themselves. This will provide hands-on information to the people, which so far are only available to experts of tsunamis in the Tsunami Early Warning Centers. Empowering communities and valuing their role is the key to successful mitigations of tsunamis, as they meet the needs of those who live day by day on the front line of the disaster.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon. Profesor Kostas Sinolaskis, University of Southern California, Dr. Alessandro Annunziato, Joint Research Center of European Commission, Mr. Ardito Kodijat of the Indian Ocean Tsunami Information Center, Dr. Aryo Hanggono, DEA, Director General of Marine Spatial Planning, my esteemed colleagues from the Indonesian Tsunami Expert Society, LIPI and ITB, Ibu Iriana Rafliana dan Ibu Rahma Hanifa, Profesor Sarip Wijaya, Chairman of the Agency for Marine and Fishery Research and Human Resources, participant in Indonesia and overseas. First of all, I would like to say apologize for delay this meeting. On behalf of the Republic of Indonesia, it is a pleasure for me to welcome you all to this international virtual meeting seminar on strengthening mitigation effort through community-based tsunami preparedness. Indonesia, as the largest island nation in the world, is strategically located in the intersection between two oceans and two great continents. This gives Indonesia an endless blessing of natural resources, both on land and sea. Coastal communities and villages whose lifeline depend on the richness of the sea grow and flourish along the coastline. The Marine Research Center, in collaboration with the Joint Research Center of the European Commission, is developing the low-cost tsunami early warning system called IDSL, or inexpensive device for sea levels measurement that allow the community to be involved directly in installation and maintenance, even in production. This will provide coastal community not only a first-hand information on changing of the sea level rise due to sudden anomaly, but also to strengthen awareness and preparedness against future tsunami event. Ladies and gentlemen, in this opportunity, we would like to introduce you the Indonesian name of IDSL. In order to familiarize the system among Indonesian, we introduced the new term called PUMA, or perangkat ukur murah untuk mengukur muka air laut. How to translate in English? This is in Indonesian language. Puma, along with other existing system, e.g. BMKG, and the involvement of community in reducing the impact of tsunami, also needs support from other parties, policies, and cooperation coordination with other authorities, especially BMKB, BNPB, and the local government. Therefore, we set up the program called ADAT, Mandiri or Aksi Bersama Detektif Awal Tsunami Secara Mandiri, in line with Presidential Decree number 93/2019, where the MMAF is responsible for tsunami wave mitigation in the cultural aspect. This innovation is our first step to elevate the role of our coastal community in disaster mitigation. However, we understand that the road ahead is still long. Therefore, we are currently continuing to test and develop our innovation with our staff and researchers, and we open to collaborate with all related stakeholders inside and outside Indonesia. Finally, I thank all the parties for their contribution in the research and the organization of this international virtual seminar. We are open and we welcome any suggestion and feedback from you, and I hope this seminar would be a strategic forum to discuss and enrich our knowledge about how we can better promote tsunami mitigation to our community. With that, I officially open this seminar. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon.
Ladies and gentlemen, the next session is panel discussion series that will be held by moderator Mr. Sri Yusri. Bapak Menteri, Bapak Karabadan, terima kasih. Acara yang selesai dan selanjutnya adalah diskusi panel yang akan dilanjutkan oleh moderator. Sebelumnya, kami mengharapkan untuk dapat berfoto bersama dengan Bapak Menteri dan Bapak Karabadan. Terima kasih.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mrs. Sakiti, for the opportunity, ladies and gentlemen. So let's start the panel discussion session, and now we have the RC European Commission. We also have Mr. Dian Novianto from Pangandaran, West Java. We have also Mrs. Kama Hanifah from IPB Bandung. We also have Mrs. Irina Ratiana from Lipi. Now she's online from Germany. We also have Mr. Ardito Kadija from IOT, Indian Ocean Tsunami Information Office. And also we have Mrs. Peggy Nurhadi. Mrs. Peggy is representing Mr. Aryo Handono, who cannot join us today. So the first opportunity for the speakers will be for Mr. Aryo Handono, and this time will be represented by Mrs. Peggy Nurhadi. Mrs. Peggy is from she's the head of the section of disaster mitigations and climate change adaptation. So she will deliver about the topic on disaster management strategy in Indonesia. So Mrs. Peggy, time is yours. You can start now, please.
Thank you, Pak Sumedi. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Distinguished panelists, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Apology from Dr. Aryo Handono for come and join this meeting, and I will present him to present about the disaster mitigation strategy in Indonesia. Can I see the slides, please? Personally, can I see the slides?
Yes, wait a second. Someone is working on your slide now.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Adi, can you show the slide of Mr. Aryo Hangano, please?
Okay, should I continue with the slides?
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay, I will bring you with some direction for disaster management in Indonesia. At the National Coordination Meeting on Disaster Management in the early of February 2020, the President of the Republic of Indonesia, His Excellency Joko Widodo, highlights four major points in the implementation of disaster management in Indonesia. The first one is the synergy between national and local government in conducting disaster readiness, mitigation, and preparedness. Second is the urgency for all governors, regions, and mayors to set a contingency plan on their own area. Third, can I see my slides?
It's coming.
Okay. The third one is using a pentahelic collaborative approach. So it's not only involve the government, but also the academicians, the researcher, private sector, community, and also mass media. So it's pentahelic. The fourth direction is about the human resource capacity in disaster management, both at national and local level. And fifth is the command for Panglima TNI and also Kapolri to support disaster management measures, specifically in law enforcement. Okay, it's not coming here. I think it's hard for me to explain without my slides. Okay, continue. Those directions given by the President should be linked with the policy stated at Act number 24, 2007 on disaster management. You can see the Act also have derivative regulation on it, and it called Government Regulation number 21, year 2008, for its implementation. The Act and the government regulation is quite general, but specifically for coastal and small island area, we also have specific regulations. We have Act number 27, 2007 on coastal zone management, where disaster is highlighted as one of the issues that need to be addressed. Its derivation is we have a regulation number 64/2010, which sets mitigation action needed to be taken in the coastal and small island. Okay. Can we go to the third slides, please? This one, I already discussed this. Next, please. Okay, I already say about this. Okay, next. Okay, this is the connection between disaster management and spatial planning. Well, in addition to Government Regulation number 64 in 2010, Act 27 in 2007 also mandates the implementation of coastal setback through Presidential Decree number 51 of 2016. The coastal setback, not yet previous, like previous. Can we go to the previous slide? Okay. The coastal setback area is needed to be established by local government with provincial and also the regency, the city, and it become an integrated part of a spatial planning regulation or RPRW. So it will be part of RPRW. The boundaries needed to be calculated based on physical and also socioeconomic characteristics and functions, among others, as protection against earthquake and tsunami. Okay, this is the sample of the importance of a coastal setback in tsunami mitigation. Not yet. Please want all participants to see the difference before and after tsunami. One slide before this one. Okay, on my screen I can see the same area displayed on the screen, but it's before the tsunami. The area is in South Pandeglang in Banten province, and well, my screen is before the tsunami, so it's still full of trees, still full of coastal vegetations, and you can see we calculate the distance is about 168 meters from the coastline to the road there at the settlement area, and the area between the coastline and the settlement area is full of trees, coconut tree, I think. Before tsunami is the plantation is quite dense, and what happened after the tsunami hit the Sunda Strait tsunami? The post-tsunami survey confirmed that the coastal vegetation planted in the setback area can reduce about 88.2% of tsunami height. So it secures the settlement area next to the coastal vegetation. So the damage to the settlement area is lower than it should be. You can see it starts from 3 meters, 3.6 meters, and the plantation there, the vegetation is reduced the height of the tsunami wave, and at the end, when it reaches the settlement area, it becomes less than half meters. Okay. Okay, from the coastal setback, let's move to coastal vegetations. Next slide. Okay. This is one of the concepts of using coastal vegetation for protection. Here, the coastal vegetation is used as natural barrier to protect the coastline and also infrastructures behind it. If we combine the coastal vegetation with the sediment trap structures like here, If you can see, we put the hybrid engineering structure picture there. It can also use to rehabilitate the coastline. So the coastline will be moved toward the oceans. The area protected by coastal vegetation can be used for many purposes, including tourism area. Well, this concept is tailor-made and can be adjusted to the local condition. But this one can be used as a natural protection for our coastline by using vegetation. Okay, I will move to another example. Here in Telangria Beach in Pacitan Bay. It's in south coast of Java. So previously, the area was empty. With a strong collaboration with a local government of Pacitan, MMIF started the plantation in two phases. The first one in 2008 and the second one is in 2011. The plantation is the type of the vegetative species is vary. We have casuarina there. We have also ketapang and butun. I don't know what it is in English, but it's kind of ketapang is, I think we already know ketapang, and butun is also is Indonesian name, yeah. But it's coastal vegetations and it follows the local species in the area. So when we plant the coastal vegetation, we also make it suitable with the characteristic of the physical characteristic of the area. Our monitoring in 2018 shows that the vegetation have grown well, and the area is now used by local government for tourism. You can see there is a small road there between the beach, the beach, and also the vegetation. There's a line there. It's a small road, usually used for jogging. So it's a function as a jogging track for the local people there. Another example is in Muara Putus village in Agam, West Sumatra. Also another tsunami prone area. The casuarina there also doing very well, and it protects the road and also the settlement area behind it. If you can see it, I think you can see it from the picture. Okay, next. Let me bring your attention to our latest dissemination process. Here I put you the warning receiver system for Indonesia Tsunami Early Warning System. So at the mid of this year, MNIF have an intense communication with BMKG regarding the installation of one of the receiver system in KKP. It's already installed at the beginning of this month, and it's put in Mina Bahari 3 building. The system is directly connected to BMKG and BMKG server, and it sends two types of early warning. The first one is the left one is the real-time warning, the earthquake, and also the right side is the warning released by the MKG. Okay, next please. Okay, this is how it looks like. Maybe the slides will provide you better the view of the monitor. The first one is about the real-time warning. Every time the sensors detect an earthquake with magnitude more than 1, it automatically appears on the screen together with the sounds of the alarm. So, in 8th floor of Window 3, you will hear a lot of alarms saying that the earthquake happens there and there. If the magnitude is more than 5 in Richter scale, then it's also the warning also will be sent to the TSMS to 20 listed PICs. The right corner is the official release warning sent by the MKG operator. So sometimes you can see from the screen that the scale from both earthquake is not the same because the release one usually has already been calibrated by the MKG. This official warning also will send you the warning for tsunami if any tsunami is detected by the sensors. Okay, next. Okay, since we're still on the progress of using the wireless system, we are still not disseminate the dissemination of the information is still very limited to a small group, but in this month, at the end of this month, we hope that this system can information and system can be used by all stakeholders of MMIM. So the PICs that we propose there is Pusdatin, Fisheries Community, the Pelabuhan Perikanan, Fisheries Harbor, SKPP, all the KKP office in all over Indonesia, and also the most important is about the public relation of KKP. So it will appear on the website and also the social media of KKP. Hopefully, the dissemination process and SOP and everything will be finished at the end of this month, and we can continue to disseminate this to all MMIF stakeholders start from this August. I think that's all from me. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Pak Lady.
Thank you, Mrs. Fegi, for the presentation. We are now supposed to have Professor Kostas Yunakis, but still I don't see him online on my screen. Therefore, in order to save the time, I would like to invite Dr. Alessandro Annunziato from the European Commission of the Joint Research Center to give
Pak Lady, you're still in mute.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Fegi, for the presentation. It was very interesting and very informative. Therefore, we would like to have now Professor Kostas Sinolakis, but unfortunately, he's not appeared yet. He's registered, but I think we should wait for some time. Therefore, now we would like to have Dr. Alessandro Annunziato from the Joint Research Center of the European Commission for a talk about the development of low-cost tsunami early warning system, and also about the last mile project for the south of Java. Professor Dr. Alessandro Annunziato, time is yours, please.
I am very sorry, Pasmedi. We cannot hear you. You're still on mute.
Halo? Yes.
You are echoing, Kak.
But it's, yeah, the echo is too loud.
Okay.
Okay, good morning to everybody. I'm trying to share my screen.
Yes, please.
I see that host disabled participant screen sharing. So if you can allow me to share, or if you can. I cannot share my screen. So if you can allow me to share, I will do it. Mungkin admin perlu mengizinkan Pak Alessandro untuk share screen.
Yeah, I think all of the panelists cannot share their screens too.
But you can show the presentation on your side.
Oke. Bang Smedi, mungkin slide share dibuka aja untuk semua panelis. Jadi sambil ini kita bisa continue tanpa saling menunggu.
Okay, now it seems I can. Can you see my screen?
Yes, Dr. Alessandro, we can see your screen. Thank you.
Okay, this this talk is related to the last mile projects, and I will describe what we have done and what we plan to do also in the next future. So the objective is, can we alert for near field tsunami? This is the question. So since 2004, the international community did a lot of impressive improvements. We have seen also recently the previous presentation. And this is particularly true in Indonesia, because it was a country that mostly suffered for the largest impact of severe events. So, however, let's say the problem is near shore or non-seismic tsunami, because for those kind of events, the possibility to alert the population is rather limited. And so the last mile is very important, because we have to transfer the alert to the affected population. Until the alert is not at the affected population, we cannot say that we succeeded in performing an alert. So the objective of those projects that have been funded by the European Commission are to test technologies that can help near field or non-seismic events identification and alerting, and testing the dissemination of the alert to the population for all type of tsunami events. The motivation for this originates from these events that occurred in Mediterranean Sea in 2017. It was a mild tsunami, relatively mild tsunami, magnitude 6.6, about distant 10 kilometers from the closest coasts of Bodrum and Kos, that are Greece, in Turkey and in Greece, where we had about 2 meters and 1.5 meters in Kos. It is a relatively low tsunami, but if the magnitude would have been a little bit higher, the consequences could have been much worse. And so this represented for us, let's say, a sort of ringing bell that allow us to think what to do. And the result is that in 11 minutes the wave arrived in Kos, similar time in Bodrum, no alert was given to the population, and the behavior of the people was totally wrong, erratic, or simply totally unaware of the possible risk. And for that, the European Commission decided to fund 2 pilot projects. Phase 1, that is almost finished a few months ago, in which we tested those concepts in Kos and in Bodrum, in the 2 cities, and phase 2 that is ongoing, where we will test in Malta and in Indonesia, in Pangandaran. So this is just an example of what I mean for erratic. You see that these are a camera from security camera in Kos, and you see that the wave is arriving from the yellow arrow, and there are people running on the right in this image, and few seconds after, people running on the left, inside the tsunami that reaches about 1.5 meters. And nobody told them where to go, how to go, and what to do. So the objective of these projects were to create pilot cities, to integrate, to install material that we will see, and to execute the public drill, and finally a final version. The timeline you can see is, let's say, is indicated below. What were the tasks of the project? So there were preliminary analysis that, let's say, we have to make a tsunami level, sea level scenarios analysis, identification of the tsunami inundation zone and evacuation maps that were not available in those 2 cities that we have seen, and intensity shaking estimation. Then we installed a number of devices, 2 IDSL, the PUMA, now we call PUMA also, 2 seismic accelerator, 2 tsunami alerting panels, 1 long-range siren, and tsunami evacuation signatures. And then we performed a tsunami drill. The concept is the following, that we have, let's say, an earthquake. This earthquake will be detected by the earthquake sensor. So the earthquake sensor can already send a message to the alerting panel directly from the earthquake sensor itself with a siren. And when the tsunami wave will be detected by the IDSL, all also the IDSL will send another alerting message to the alerting panel, and so the system is fully automatic and can work, let's say, also with personal devices so that individual people may be alerted. And this is the way to improve, let's say, to cut the timing of the alerting. How do we do this? Because in the IDSL we have implemented a logic, a software that during the monitoring, this is an example of the sea level measured in cross, when the level is decreasing, there is a calculation ongoing of the possible deviation from the expected behavior, and this will trigger an alert that then is used in order to activate the system. Basically, the system should work like this. Normally, the panel should show normal messages, welcome to bottom in that case, but when there is a shaking, there should be the sea level rising, there is alert, and there is a message saying go to high ground, and people should direct to high ground. We did this project will be implemented, as I said, in Bodrum and in CROSS, and I will report here some images of the CROSS exercise. We installed the tsunami images, we installed the siren, the alerting panel, and then we did an interesting exercise where 2 schools were involved and were activated. When the alert was activated, they had to go through the evacuation sign to the safe zones. The next phase of this is 2021. We will test in those 2 locations, in Maastricht's Lock in Malta. This is a place that is about 45 to 50 minutes from the source, and we will do a full installation and public clean. And then in Pandangaran, more or less same time, let's say with a full installation, and while DSL is already installed. In Malta is located in the Mediterranean Sea, you know, is south of Italy, and the location where this will be tested is in the south of the island. It is a very, let's say, touristic and industrial area. And in Pandangaran, let's say we intend to perform similar activity, and we are already, let's say, planning with colleagues from MMF the way to really conduct the exercise. The material arrived only a couple of days ago here in JSC. Those are the five panels, and 2 will be sent in Indonesia. And on the right, there are a number of, let's say, additional materials, science, and so on. And also those will be sent soon after we have tested them. So in perspective, we will complete this phase by mid-2020. But what is important is also to ensure the sustainability of those tsunami last mile, and let's say find other cities, testing new communication system, and it's very important periodic testing of the implemented pilot cities. Otherwise, even if we make a very nice exercise probably next year, then let's say when this will be needed, it will not work. So there must be a very detailed and very serious testing program, so the system is always functional when it is needed. And in this system, UNESCO has a very important role in order to guarantee the harmonization in the various countries, and also to promote local alerting system, comparable and integrated with the national warning system. And I saw before the previous presentation is going in the same direction, and I very much welcome. So in conclusion, I think that those last mile projects that we are carrying on are, in my opinion, quite important contribution for the tsunami, nearshore tsunami problem. And they are very important also for tsunami awareness of local communities and authorities. Because what we have seen in the case of Kos and also in the case of Bodrum, that one of the major, let's say, advantage of those projects was exactly the fact that this led the communities to think about these problems, even if, let's say, even without doing a lot of things, but the simple fact that they have to think how to react, how to plan, how to organize the emergency was very, very important for the tsunami awareness. Of course, we need a lot of coordination for events like this between authorities and between the population and the national, let's say, bodies. But international cooperation is absolutely important in order to have harmonization of the various installations. And this concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Alessandro Annunziato from the Joint Research Center of the European Commissions for the discussion on the developing of the low-cost tsunami warning system and also the last mile project. Now we are moving to Mr. Dian Novianto from Piamari Pangandaran of the Marine Research Center. So the talk of Dr. Alessandro Annunziato and also the talk from Dian Novianto is somehow related each other. So Mr. Dian Novianto, the time is yours, please.
Fascinating. I'm very sorry that I have to interrupt. I learned that Professor Costas will need to leave in the next few minutes.
Oh, the next few minutes, but I don't see him here.
He's using the Datin account.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Hello, Professor Costas Sinalakis, can you hear me? Professor Costas Sinalakis, if you are here, you can start your presentations. So Professor Costas Sinalakis has been involved in tsunami research in more than 20 years. And he was also in 1994 South Java tsunami and also 2006 South Java tsunamis. Professor Costas Sinalakis also in 2018 was involved in the ITST survey team in Palu and also in the Sunda Strait. Professor Costas Sinalakis, you can start now. I got confirmation. No, he is here. Professor Sinalakis.
Hello, good morning.
Oh, good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Hi. Finally, it has been very difficult to connect, and it's always the case with Zoom meetings. No matter how much we do it, there are always small bugs. So, good morning, Indonesia, in the world.
Good afternoon.
What I wanted to catch up with you is give you a review of the last 25 years in terms of what we did in East Java in 1994, and I'm very pleased that Maria Usman, who at the time was a USC student, is now joining us, and I believe she has a video with what happened with some photographs from the 1994 survey. Let me take you back, and then I'll join my comments with what Alessandro Annunziato just said about the IDSL. As you well recall, in 1994, we had the stealth tsunami. The 2006 tsunami was essentially a repeat of the 1994 event, very, very similar. They were both slow earthquakes. What this means is that the ground shaking is not a precursor. So we cannot rely on people feeling the ground shake. In most places in East Java in 1994, coastal residents did not feel the ground shake. And the first indication that they had of the tsunami was the advancing tsunami. Of course, there was a leading depression and wave. And if we can get the presentation going, I will show you what this is. Luckily, we did not have a lot of deaths. I mean, the death toll in this Java tsunami was fairly small compared to what it could have been.
the areas, were sparsely populated at the time. Most of the impact was in narrow bays, in Lampon, in Ratchekwezi, in Panser, but there was complete devastation. 2006 was an entirely different event in terms of impact, but it was very different in terms of. It was very similar in terms of the earthquake ground shaking. To bring you back in 2006, there was a warning issued. However, it was very, very difficult to implement. I talked to local lifeguards. On that particular day in South Java, there were very big surf waves. Even for the lifeguards, who had been specifically trained after the 2004 Sumatran tsunami to recognize the signs of the tsunami coming, they couldn't see it because there were very heavy waves pounding on the beaches. So, yes?
Do you have your presentation?
I think let me try to see if I can share. Let me see if I can share the screen. Yeah, I'll say it in the enable screen sharing. Let me just finish and my blah blah, and then I'll go to the specifically the presentation. But what is happening in 2006 is the fact that there is so much wave activity that even the lifeguards cannot see the water level, the sea level withdrawing, which is the leading depression wave. But there was preparedness. I mean, Indonesia was much more ready in 2006 than it was in 1994, and hopefully it's much more ready now. The key in 2006 was that there was much more public education, and clearly this is the way to go. Let me tell you that there was an article in Science, in International Science magazine, that I published a picture of the drills, the evacuation drills that were started taking place immediately after the tsunami in 2006. So both the 1994 and the 2006 tsunamis are textbook examples of why tsunami mitigation is so difficult. The reason I'm saying this is so difficult is that for near-shore events, because when you have the earthquake, when the residents cannot feel an earthquake, and they cannot see the sea level withdrawing, then really there's no warning that they can have other than directly looking at the sea. So this is a big challenge, and it is still with us. Slow earthquakes of the kind that the people cannot feel the ground shaking. Back in 1994, we thought that there was about 1 in 100. Now we think that slow earthquakes are about 1 in 10. Some people even think 1 in 5. So these are more common events. For Indonesia and for the world, this means that we go back to the point where public education and awareness are incredibly important in terms of saving lives. And I'll try to share my screen for a minute. Let me see if it's going to work. To sort of, if I can get my presentation. Host disabled screen sharing. Can you please activate my screen sharing? And I will see if I can get my PowerPoint to work. Can you please activate my screen sharing? Screen sharing, if you can hear me. Okay, if that doesn't work.
Yes, we can hear you. We are working on it now.
Okay, I'm trying to get the screen sharing to work, but it is not. It doesn't seem to work. Let me see. Share screen, hang on a second, try again. Host has disabled the attendee screen sharing, so I cannot use screen sharing, which is fine. Let me just go through and tell you where we stand right now. As Alessandro mentioned, near field tsunami warning, this means for tsunamis that take place very near the coast, is incredibly difficult. The real value of the IBSL, and I'm very pleased that Alessandro mentioned it, is in terms of raising awareness. Because we should not be caught in a trap where we think, or residents think, that there will always be a tsunami warning. Because this is not correct. I mean, there will be times that any system, the best system in any country in the world, is not going to work. And it's not going to work because there's simply not enough time. The best thing for by the time the IBSL registers the wave is already on the coast. So the residents, you're going to have at best about a minute or two.
Yes, you can try to share your screen.
To go away. Let me see, I'll try to say it again. Okay. Let's just leave it for a second. It's just not going to work. I send the presentation to Mrs. Usman so she can maybe show it later. But anyway, let me talk about the IBSL and the near field warning. It is very dangerous to be caught into the trap of thinking that there will always be a warning. So along with installing the IBSL, one should always have evacuation drills and pass the message that this system is supplementary, which means that by the time that it registers the wave, in many cases it's too late. It will be very useful in some places like the Mentawais or wherever there are offshore islands to go on the mainland. I mean, if there is an IBSL in the Mentawais, it will register the wave arriving in the Mentawais, but as far as Padang is concerned, we're going to have at least 10-15 minutes to go on Padang. The same thing in many of the islands in the Sunda Strait. I mean, if there had been an IBSL in any of the islands in Sunda Strait, along the coast of Java or Sumatra, there would have been time to have a warning. So I will end this brief intervention by saying that the world has learned a lot from Indonesia and from Indonesian tsunamis. We have basically developed our numerical tools and our numerical codes following the Flores Island and the 1994 East Java tsunami. So basically all the benchmarking, calibration, everything that took place with the field data that the international community collected from the Flores and the Sister Flores and East Java. We've learned a lot, and we've learned a lot also from our Indonesian colleagues who have been with us on the field, who have helped us understand the culture and understand the people. So it was a joint learning process that took place between the international community and Indonesia, and that we use these lessons everywhere in the world. And the main lesson, after all these years, after about close to 30 years, 28 years, that I've been studying tsunamis in Indonesia, is that for the near field events, the key remains education, 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 evacuation drills, evacuation drills, evacuation drills, because it's really the key to saving lives for the near field tsunamis. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Kostas Sinolakis, for the talk. It's it's very important that the event of 1994 and 2006 tsunami, South Java tsunami, was silent tsunamis because hardly the residents couldn't feel the earthquakes. So it means that the early warning system could be very important, as well as the awareness and the preparedness of the coastal communities. Once again, thank you very much, Professor Kostas Sinolakis. Now I would like to invite Mr. Dian Novianto from the Marine Research Center based in Pangandaran to talk about the latest tsunami mitigation program for the south of Java. Your time is yours, Professor Dian Novianto, please.
Thank you, Pak Sabedi. Menjadi Profesor Pak Sabedi.
Almost. Can you share directly your screen from there?
Yeah, please open my share screen. Okay, distinguished all speakers and participants, good afternoon. My name is Dian Novianto. I stay in Pangandaran Research Facilities Office, and then now my duties is very easy because Dr. Alessandro and Professor has to explain more detail about IDSL, and then I want to share my slide. Uh, okay, thank you. I am going to talk about Puma, IDSL, and tsunami mitigation in south of Java. This slide, as stated the minister before, previously, where this rule of laws as the basis of the MMIF and is actively involved in tsunami disaster mitigation. And in order to strengthen coastal community disaster resilient culture, we introduce self-resilience and sustainable tsunami detection tool, IDSL. And then we use the simple name, the acronym of PUMA, which introduce the public in Indonesia so that it is easier to remember as a very important tool in strengthening mitigation efforts and tsunami preparedness. Although with simple name that is very easy to remember, will make the community become more awareness about tsunami strike and always maintain the PUMA in their area. So PUMA equal IDSL, but PUMA in Indonesia perangkat ukur murah untuk muka air laut. So saying the PUMA, we state about adat mandiri, aksi bersama deteksi awal tsunami secara mandiri, and working together for early detection and self-evacuation. This the acronym include so many components to support the early detection and self-evacuation. And then we already have existing AWS hosting by BMKG, and PUMA is part of strengthening mitigation infrastructure. We hope that there will be more PUMA inside, especially in tsunami-prone areas. We saw so many components in this circle, and then this is the example coastal community participation, and then I want to explain about Bala Wisata. Bala Wisata means assistance from the community to helping and services for tourist activity in the area, and then communities can directly control and maintain the equipment.
the new EDSL in oceanic fishing port Bungus, West Sumatra, installed on 3 July. With the phenomenon detection in Puma EDSL system for courses fraud, so high water level, this the signal alert in Pangandaran, and then this the beautiful figure captured from the CCTV. It is IDSL, Puma, and so many chauffeurs. They occurring for during COVID-19 lockdown, and then these some people from overseas, when the COVID lockdown, they locked down in the paradise. They said like that. And then this is the Krakatau eruption captured by Puma. Is the fire. And then in addition to tsunami monitoring, Puma can also provide information on nearby activities through the CCTV. This is the additional benefit for monitoring fishery activities at fishing port. Example of fishing activity, landing and departure, and productivity, loading and unloading. And maybe if we focus the monitoring fisheries activity, maybe we can put 2 or 3 cameras to monitor to cover the all area in port, fishing port. This is the 5 existing Puma in Sebesi, Pandeglang, Pangandaran, Yogyakarta, Sadeng, Bungus, West Sumatra, and we will be installed in Agustus 2010 in Mentawai, Sukabumi, and Perigi. With the plan for Puma installation fisheries port network, we plan to install more than 100 units in coverage or Indonesian area. Last mile project has been explained by Dr. Alessandro. This describe the position, detailed position, and then for your information, we have conducted research related to tsunami evacuation routes on the east coast of Pangandaran, Pantai Timur Pangandaran, to supporting the last mile project too. There are 4 facilities owned by MMIF in this area, namely in the Cikidang Port, Cikidang Port Fisheries, and then this the primary research facilities with Polytechnic, Marine and Fisheries, and then beside the Polytechnic building, there are fish feed factory. So this is the detailed location. Related conducted research related to tsunami, we have provide the models, tsunami modeling. This is the pattern of wave. Following all the result of tsunami modeling for the Pangandaran East Coast region, the conclusion is that it takes 30 minutes to evacuate before the second large wave reaches the source area. This is the figures. This is the times is the elevation. And then this the route evacuation, alternative route evacuation based on the research is the existing route, and then we in here, if using the existing route, we need 50 minutes. So we recommended to using alternative evacuation route behind the primary building and between Polytechnic and its factory. This is the green line, and then we just need 23 minutes to time traveling to find the evacuation here in here. This is the plan for tsunami evacuation bridges resort recommendation. Is the Piamari and is the free factory. Before the any street in here, local street for the people activity in near the shore. We using put sign the vertical tsunami evacuation in all research facilities. And then finally, closing Puma IDSL and the similar system, the BIG networks can be the best alternative to strengthen the existing system in Indonesia. Their contribution to INA and TNT of BMKG, Puma IDSL can trigger large-scale cultural aspect of community awareness and preparedness. Puma IDSL with large-scale project, structural and cultural for tsunami mitigation in line with the presidential decree. Unit Adat Mandiri are working together for early detection and self-evacuation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dian Novianto from Pangandaran. Would like now to have our last presenter. This is going to be Mrs. Irina Rafliana from LIPI, but she is now in Germany pursuing a PhD on the topic of tsunami mitigation and also coastal community preparedness. So, Mrs. Irina, I would like to have your time now, please.
Thank you very much, Master Mehdi. I hope everyone can hear me. Meanwhile, Master Mehdi, can you please activate my screen sharing? It's not activated yet.
Okay, I will. It should be activated for everyone.
Yeah, it was activated a few moments ago, but now it's not active. So probably meanwhile you are activating again. Allow me to introduce myself, everybody. First of all, thank you very much for the opportunity. I am Irina Rafliana from the Indonesian Institute of Sciences, and I am now taking my PhD research in Bonn, Germany, affiliated with the German Development Institute, or DIE, and I'm at my first year. My research topic is social construction of technologies in the tsunami warning system. My tsunami is still disabled. I cannot share my screen still at the moment. It's still disabled.
Yes, you can see that they are working on it now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let me try again. Nope. Still
Now you can
disabled.
do it, I think.
Okay. Wait a moment. Yeah. So can you see my screen now?
Yes. Yes. Clear.
Okay, I will put it in full screen. Oh, okay. So yeah, this is my introduction. My outline would be 4 points. I hope I don't take too much time. First, I would like to use stories to reflect on the past and recent tsunami experiences and events in Indonesia, and discuss about why we need to shift our paradigms in discussing about preparedness. I'm not using community preparedness, and there's a strong reason behind that at the end of my presentation. There's also systemic issues on tsunami preparedness that I would like to share with all of you as a trigger for our further discussion and also way forward. To begin with, I will start with the argument that tsunami as a word or as a terminology is a non-indigenous terminology in Indonesia. Communities in many tsunami risk areas in Indonesia have their own meanings and connections, including terminologies about tsunamis, not necessarily translated into something that can happen in the future. Hence, we have to do something about it, and these are the steps that we need to do to save our lives once it occurs in our life. But in some areas in Indonesia, such knowledge exists. For example, in Sumelu Island, where all of these stories about the past tsunami, for example, in Aceh, educated throughout different generations and allowed them to then understand what happened in 2004 and save their lives. 10,000 of people were saved, and only 7 people died, comparing to the 100,000s of casualties in other areas throughout the Indian Ocean. There's different stories around Indonesia or even around the world, but I can share at least here the story of the Queen of the South Sea that is very much embraced in particularly the southern part of Java in Indonesia. There's also paintings in the Sumatra mainland by a Spanish painter that try to reflect into a more rational, empirical notion about what happened during the tsunami event in this coast, and also stories from later on scientific knowledge and findings about the Palo tsunami deposit that tells us about tsunami history in the past. That goes the same as well in Pangandaran, as now we are reflecting the commemoration of the Pangandaran tsunami 2006. There are actually stories about foster son of the Queen of the South Sea that is buried in a cave, Gua Panggung, and now this cave is still visited by pilgrims, and this shows clearly how communities until today are still developing their own meaning making and also their own seascape meaning and connection with the sea, not necessarily translate that into a tsunami that could happen in the future. And then if we reflect back to the Indian Ocean tsunami 2004 and looking at how people at the Aceh mainland coast are really surprised with what happened to them, and they actually had the lead time at that time, comparing to what happened in Japan in 2011, we can see the different rational knowledge and also capacities in responding to it. And at that time, there were no tsunami warning system in place. The different action and also reaction was performed in Japan, for example. What is interesting is to find that after the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, there actually a lot of economic impact affected many different coasts and also touristic industries in many areas in Indonesia. Hence, probably trigger an interesting narrative by scientists in Indonesia at that time, posing arguments or frames of this that Pangandaran is not threatened by tsunami. But we know then at the end, a few months after that, there's a huge tsunami occurred in Pangandaran. But this narrative that are posed by scientists is actually captured by the local government, and they take this to recover the affected tourist industry in Pangandaran from collapsing and to boost back their economy. Sounds pretty much similar with the current COVID situation in Indonesia as well. So as you know, we all now know that in June 2006, there is actually a slow-swaying tsunami earthquake happening in Indonesia, and it's really different from what happened in Aceh. There are misleading public education information that were introduced to this coastal community that created a different perception. There's no strong ground shake. Why should there be a tsunami in Pangandaran? There's a huge confusion at that time as well. It causes 600 deaths, and there were no tsunami warning system as well at place at that time. And now we go to Mentawai a few years later on, where there is another slow-swaying earthquake or tsunami earthquake that causes another 500 casualties. But nevertheless, it also showed how effective intervention could save lives. There are particular village in Mentawai that the entire village was saved because of the previous intervention done by Surf Aid organization. For example, 100% of the village is saved. This is almost similar with a similar story, and they evacuated. And that time there are no tsunami warning for the community. But unfortunately, on the other hand, on the other areas, other villages in Mentawai, some are actually confused and also baffled by the slow-swaying earthquake, and we're not sure whether this ground shake will generate tsunami. Hence, it's also caused by the misleading education message captured by the Aceh experience. So what is interesting is after the 2010 tsunami in Mentawai, there's actually a research done by Kompas, a newspaper, research center within Kompas, suggesting that the communities in Indonesia in general are still more or less more traditional in looking at risk and looking at their threats in the future, and only 8.4% are pretty much relying on empirical notion and also scientific arguments to then build their own perception of risks. Even in Banda Aceh and also in Palu at that time, still a huge number of informants or respondents actually argued that they don't think that they are living in a tsunami risk or disaster risk area in Indonesia. So there's another different clash of rational and another different clash of risk perception that is embedded in the community that we did not take enough time to understand why and explain why this is happening. So continuing the initiative that is done in Pangandaran, of course there are a lot of amazing and brilliant initiatives done by different organizations and also local actors trying to move at the grassroots level to commemorate the tsunami event in Pangandaran, of course with very limited resources. And now I'm very happy that it now captured the national and also international attention on commemorating this Pangandaran event. And also there are a lot of efforts done by the government, for example, establishing vertical evacuation in Pasar Pangandaran. So this is an example of the evacuation shelter that was built right after, as a follow-up from the Mentawai tsunami 2010, embedded in the national master plan for tsunami. So you can see many buildings were built in many different areas. Unfortunately, on the 15th December 2017, when the area was struck by a strong ground shake, not slow swaying, but strong ground shake, followed by tsunami warning, no one evacuated this building because they are detached socially, unconnected with this infrastructure, with this artifact. And public public failed to trust this building, not mentioning the building also was quite destructed by the earthquake itself. So this will again reshape how people think about risk, how people think about intervention, and how people think how they should save their lives, and provided all of these interventions by different organizations and agencies. This also goes the same with what happened in Lombok, for example, on the 5th August 2018, where again, the building was disrupted by the strong ground shake, followed by tsunami warning, and no one evacuated to this building. Again, the reason was there's no social connection to this building, and it was built without or lack of dialogue with the local communities. I can explain a little bit more about Lombok, but then I don't think I have time, but feel free to email me and discuss this further. Again, of course, there's always this big need to strengthening the readiness and awareness of communities in the coastal area of Java. Hence, the National Disaster Management Agency launched the Tsunami Resilient Village Expedition around 2 months in 2019. Then there's also an interesting initiative, valuation of community resiliences in different villages and also schools, so on and so forth. But again, this is an on and off kind of intervention and quite sporadic rather than a longitudinal kind of intervention. On the other hand, media also poses a different way of narratives or constructions. And at the moment, even until now, it has always become the media's kind of a way to frame bad news as good news or the other way around. Always cover disaster when it happens. Maybe this is also due to there are no dedicated desks for disaster journalists in different medias. They can be stirred in a different position and different field of interviews or a different field of exposures, for example. No warning for people led by the media, for example, to prepare for the next big thing, except few national media, for example, Kompas, who's quite active in this sense. And media is also very actively putting themselves in a position of collecting donation or funding, while they're supposed to do more on public education rather than doing funding distribution and collection, for example. But this seems to be very, very interesting for media in Indonesia. Another lesson, this is the last lesson from Palu, is on the very unprecedented earthquake and underwater landslide that could not, the warning could not afford to save lives of the people because the wave came in around 3 minutes after the earthquake, and the warning did not reach the communities. The siren did not work, and communities were also baffled because during the training and simulation that they attended in 2012, the exercise taught them to wait until the siren came up and wait around 15 minutes, then the wave will come. But all of a sudden, what happened in Palu is really the other way around. That confuses the community. So what is brought to lessons in this finding, of which Pak Ardhito is also part of it, and also Ahmad Arif from Kompas is also part of it, is that we have to admit that end-to-end warning system is really constrained to respond to this complex setting. And self-evaluation is key. We always need to integrate local knowledge and modern science, and also reevaluate the evacuation infrastructure, because this is also key in saving lives. And that understanding the differences of responses of communities in rural and urban settings is highly, highly important. So I just want to very quickly refresh our mind that risk perceptions are constructed by many disciplines, not only by knowledge that we introduce as scientists or as practitioners to the communities, but also their own experiences, their relationship with water and livelihood, with migration and settlements, traditional values and modern religion, political participation, and even, if we learn now from the COVID situation, the public statement or the government statement will recreate a new perception of risk and will shape how communities respond. So that is why I will avoid using community preparedness, because what we mean by preparedness is all of our preparedness here. Are we prepared as scientists? Are we prepared as the government? Are we prepared as media, for example? So that is the shift of paradigm that I would like to strongly urge us to think or rethink. There are consequences of deterministic intervention which could create resistances within the communities, and that will not create any long-term effective impact if we don't put ourselves into a better effort in understanding how risks are socially constructed. So we thought it's really about people at risk in the coast, and we have to help them prepare, but that is not the point, because it's so much complex. The story behind that. Why are people panicking? Why are public losing their trust? Why are all the shelters our system malfunctioning? Why are science are limited in their own explanation? Why it kept being why it's being proven wrong and wrong again in every new event? So this is what we need to explain and understand better. Hence, it is actually not preparing the community, but preparing ourselves to actually have a greater understanding, how science and power play the role or play in power against the uncertainties and the shape how community also understand their surroundings, how disciplinary approaches versus inter or transdisciplinary approaches will make huge difference, how understanding complex hazard, whether it's slow swelling earthquake, underwater landslide, a typical tsunami, cascading risk, are all intertwined, and we are obliged to learn more about that and help translate that to the people. How strong the role of social sciences is also important, and above all, how important it is to invest in resources so that we can ensure a longer-term investment and ensure changes are made. Otherwise, we're just doing sporadic initiatives, again and again, facing failures. So short-term exposure, of course, that's more realistic or most realistic by many different institutions because they are constrained by budget, by proposals, by projects. But you have to also think about longitudinal interventions for public education up to spatial planning, and that includes reconstructing perceptions of risk. And this is a huge task, and I don't think this should only lie in the shoulder of communities. It lies in the shoulder of all of us. So I end my talk at this point, and feel free to email me or contact if you don't have opportunities to discuss that in this very fine opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. This is Irina for the presentation. So this is a different aspect of Mrs. Irina. It's more towards social aspect, and this is very, very important, of course, in tsunami mitigations. Now we have come to the discussion session. So I would like to, because we don't have much time now, so I would like to have only two questions. The first question is directed to Mrs. Peggy. I'm sure you already answered the question, but we would like to hear directly from you about the effectiveness of coastal vegetation. Mrs. Peggy, please. This is the question from Mr. Jimmy. Mrs. Peggy, can you hear me? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yes, please. Yes, there's a question from Mr. Jimmy Nugraha about the effectiveness of coastal forests, coastal vegetation to reduce the impact of tsunamis.
Yeah, I believe I already answered that too. But yeah, okay. So one thing that we have to remember that the coastal forest can't protect us 100%. So it reduces the impact, but it cannot protect us 100%. And its effectiveness is also depends on many things. Yeah, Jimmy said about the characteristic of tsunami. So the effectiveness of coastal forest also depends a lot on the characteristic of the coastal forest. You know, the density, because a baby vegetation cannot hold the tsunami as good as the old one, and also the beach slope is also have an importance point there, and also types of vegetations, and also well, the vegetation, the density, the type of vegetation is also very, very important there. Do you have another question, Pak Sumedi?
That's the only questions we have from you at the moment. Thank you very much. So I hope that we can hear your answers.
Okay,
So I would like to,
Pak, can I add more?
yes, please.
Yes, since what Pak Jimmy said about the characteristic of tsunami, so if the tsunami comes, the height of tsunami is higher, then I think we have to make the coastal forest is bigger and thicker, because the thicker is more dense, because we need the the tree to make some kind of natural barriers there. So we need the branch to be together and being a natural protector for the coastal area. Okay, that's all, Pak. Thank you, Pak.
Thank you, Mrs. Peggy, for the answers. Now I would like to mention Mr. Aris Karudianto from the MKG and also Mr. Muhammad Mahfoud. They asked the same questions for Dr. Alessandro Annunziato about accelerometer, yeah, in ADSL for the near field tsunamis. So what role of those accelerometers, Mr. Dr. Alessandro Annunziato, please?
Yeah, this is the case when you have very near shore events that the accelerometer can serve in order to activate the initial sirens. And the idea is to have a quite high set point so that the local acceleration is corresponding to, for example, magnitude 6.5 or more. And through that, we have at least two. So this means that we have to have the same acceleration at the same time from two different accelerators mounted close by, let's say distance a few hundred meters, and this will activate the first siren. Of course, then this should be confirmed by the sea level and the idea zone. I have seen also another question here in the chat related to the IDSL onshore, offshore. Let's say, just to reply that we indeed have tested GPS floating buoys, and this is already working in the sea, in Tyrrhenian Sea, in the Mediterranean Sea, since about 1 year. The logic is similar to an IDSL, but the sensor is the GPS, differential GPS. It works very well, but the problem is the communication, because the place where we have installed, we have 3G communication. If you have to install it very far from the coast, you don't have communication, you need satellite, and this means much higher cost and much higher, let's say, difficulty and power consumption. This can be solved probably in the future with, let's say, transmission from the coast, from the signal from the coast, but we are not yet at that point. For the moment, we consider the IDSL as for the moment, the most reliable and, let's say, way to have this type of alerting.
Thank you, Alessandro, for the explanation. Unfortunately, we don't have much time. We have only one question. Then this is going to be for Mrs. Irina about Sempadan Pantai. Mrs. Irina, how to manage this? This is the questions from Yusuf Arif Afandi. Sempadan Pantai.
Is it a technical question?
This is related also to the community, I think.
Yeah, I think, well, I'm not a technical person. I'm on vegetation, on coastal vegetation.
Sempadan Pantai, it's the safe distance between the coastline and the footpath, for example. Yes.
Yeah, so a very good question. I think it's always challenging to discuss about this with the communities, but often we as government take over the risk from the hands of the community, and assuming that they cannot decide by themselves which one is good or which one is not good for their lives. And that includes on deciding where do you want to live and what risks are exposed to you once you choose that point. So that kind of dialogue is important and needed, and it's exhaustive as well. But for example, if you discuss about the Sempadan Pantai with communities in Palu and mentioning to them that the affected area is more or less 350 meters from the coastline, and would you consider to move away from that, or would you accept the risk that your investment and your house will be exposed again in the next 50 years, this is possible. I would choose that way for myself because it's more kind of a human approach. But sometimes, because of this pragmatic approach, and we cannot afford time to have this kind of dialogue, we just develop our own assumed spatial planning and maps and expose that into future risk, and then move people away without a lot of kind of dialogue. That created tension and resistances, and the people will definitely return back to that area because they have their own connection with their land. That is also the same case with Mentawai, for example. People who were forcefully displaced from their initial villages inland because it is assumed much safer for them. It created huge problem, and it sustained until now. The problem of land tenures, they can never own this new land. They can only borrow it for the rest of their life. This is a huge disruption for their own social roots. So this needs to be delicately discussed, I think. And the only way that I would choose is a very good dialogue. And that was actually done by Japan government in the case of Sendai. They took around 4 or 5 years to have this dialogue before moving people to the new land from their temporary settlement. Probably that helps or not, but we can discuss further after this.
Thank you very much, Ms. Irina, and also thank you very much for all the speakers for the presentations and for the topic on this webinar. Now we have come to our final session. We would like to hear our two reviewers here. We have Mrs. Rahma Hanifa from ITB and also Mr. Arlito Kodijak from IOTIC. Mrs. Rahma Hanifa, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, please.
But unfortunately, this account is in my handphone, so it's not in my laptop. I actually have something to share, and I think it's a very good session. Our panelists have presented very well. And this is commemorating us of what happened in Pangandaran 2006 that bring another story compared than the 2004 Aceh earthquake. As you might hear, for example, from Professor Simolaskis, that who mentioned that these two cases become lesson learned in the textbook because of the challenge. The challenge is very different because Aceh 2004 has a strong shaking followed by a catastrophic tsunami. But in the other hand, we also have the 2006 Pangandaran earthquake that have a weak shaking, so it doesn't allow for a natural warning. But actually, we could have. We didn't have an early warning system at that time, but currently we already have the tsunami warning in place, and it worked during the 2017 Tasik earthquake. But we also have other challenges. For example, the places that has a very short lead time of tsunami, structure faulting offshore, and also volcanic trigger tsunami, and landslide trigger tsunamis. So we have a very complex challenges. And to address all these problems here, we do need all stakeholders preparedness, as Irina mentioned earlier, and we also need to engage. We also need to engage all more basic geoscientific research. Yes, this is the progress of our understanding of earthquake and tsunami that we also can know from the panelists that we heard today. So we understand that Irina said after the 2004 earthquake in 2005, we believe that Java was aseismic. The previous paper mentioning from Newcomb and Macon that Java subduction is aseismic, and because it has a very old oceanic plates, and also the slab is much more deeper compared to Sumatra. And so in the knowledge, our knowledge back then is that the Java subduction is aseismic. But then after the 2006 Pangandaran earthquake, the BMKG, our government, already installed this early warning system, and also And also we have the continuous GPS installed in our all from BIG, from all of the in all the part of Indonesia, and that enable us to understand better about the tsunami, about the plate deformation, that enable us to learn better about the megatrust earthquake occurring. And so we understand now that we do have some potential in South of Java, all along South of Java. We understand the current state by using GPS, and also paleo tsunami researches is already starting mostly after 2010s. The team of Ron Harris and also team of Dr. Eko Lilianto, for example, of Dr. Purna, has started to do the paleo tsunami all along Java up to NTT and also some part in Maluku. And that's provide us a complete understanding, a better understanding of what's happening in South of Java. So we understand the risk, and next is what we can do. Of course, what we can do, our government has currently conducted a lot of effort. We heard from Irina that our government already make several effort along Java and also the other, including the Ministry of Marine Affairs. And also recently we have proposing a local knowledge. What we understand now that as Irina said, the last mile should be put into the first mile. So we are trying to bring the lesson learned from local knowledge to the global knowledge in the international standard for the implementation of community-based tsunami early warning system. This is led by BMKG, and this is a joint program of ministries and institutions and experts in bringing the local initiatives to the global level. The process is still ongoing to finalize and to release of this ISO publication, and we do hope that we could get a very good result. And so we also understand the role of universities and youth and young professionals that can leverage all of this knowledge from the scientific to the local development, and also to how to engage with the communities and develop the public material education that is in the local context. So we cannot put exactly the same material education from Aceh to Mentawai, or from Aceh Mentawai to Java, for example, but we do need to contextualize the material education from the basic research to the local context, and then provide the education from that updated and contextualized education material. What is also very important is the local wisdom that we have. That it must not be forgotten. So we have some terminology of tsunami in local term. For example, in West Java, we have several terms such as Sadara Sabadarat, Laut Dikumbah, Caah Laut Gede, Pasang Gede. We also have another term from Mentawai such as Onu, and in Palu such as Bombatalu. So this means that actually this phenomena has been occurring in the past, and the local people have their own terminology for this. And they have a local wisdom on Lurung Basisir, for example, or coastal forest that is starting to decay. So the local wisdom is also very important to be ongoing along with development of the technology. Spatial planning, of course, need to be very considered for disaster mitigation, and I do agree investment in human resources is very important. Preserving knowledge for next generation is very important, and self-evacuation ability is also very important. So we hope that we will be more prepared if a tsunami happen in Indonesia. And since we have been hosted, we have already hosted four tsunami earthquake along Sumatra range in the last decade. So we really hope in the last decade. So we really hope that through this webinar and the better we heard that there are efforts. So we hope that all together from the government, the experts, the academia, and the community, we can be prepared better and save more lives in the future. Thank you very much. And tomorrow we will have a session with Professor Hiro Kanamori. If you're interested to join, he is an emeritus professor in physics of earthquake, and he's also the one who discovered this tsunami earthquake. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Rama. Hanifa, you can just share the link for tomorrow event if it's still possible, yeah? Still open the registration for tomorrow event? Mrs. Rahman? Okay, we lost. Okay, now we have the final reviewer from the social and cultural aspect. This is going to be from Mr. Ardito Kodija from the Indian Ocean Tsunami Information Center in Jakarta. For Mr. Ardito, please, your time.
Thank you, Pak Sumedi. I hope you can hear my voice.
Yes, very clear. Thank you.
So, sorry. Let me try to share my screen.
It's just showed up.
Let's see if this is the one. Is this the one? Okay.
Yes, we can see it now.
Yeah, so thank you very much for this opportunity. It has been a very interesting listening to all the presenter, and I think I agree with all this what has been presented, and it's quite clear. So I tried to look into the fine line of the social and cultural aspect, and I looked into the presentation of Dr. Alejandro, and from the MMIF, from Irina, as well as from Costa Silomakis. And I think there are three important things that needs to be taken. First is we need to ensure that past tsunami information become public knowledge, and it has to be sustained. Because this will help in terms of the people actually believe about the potential harms, so it's related to the risk perception. I will later on talk a little bit more about this. Second, we need to ensure that the hazard and this knowledge is based on local context and characteristics, and this is also strengthened by what has been said by Irina and also Professor Kostas about what happens especially in Pangandaran in this case, where it's a slow earthquake. So it is really related to the local context and characteristics. And this, of course, will need to be supported by scientific knowledge of this hazard and risk. And we have this context-based, local context-based characteristic of hazard and risk. Then the preparedness also needs to be based on this local context. So we cannot have one preparedness for all areas. Every areas have their own specific characteristics. Then the preparedness also needs to be based on what is the local context and characteristics. And the third one is we need to ensure that the risk ownership is at our level, from the government to the community. So this, I think Irina says that when we talk about community preparedness, it's not about only the community. It is the preparedness of all levels, from the government, the community, the whole ecosystems of the community needs to be prepared. So these are the three things that I think what we can derive from the presenters. I think the GRC, the PECO last mile projects and the PUMA is one of the supporting in some of these activities, working at the local, ensuring that the ownership is at the all levels, from the warning centers until the community. As you know, with this system, the community is involved in terms of even maintaining it and as well installing, as well as developing the systems. So I try to derive this in three. Just to go into Pangandaran, I think there is something that we can learn from Palu. Irina already mentioned this, but I would like to stress it again. There are four what we can learn from Palu, and especially for our friends in Pangandaran. First, the scientific knowledge. We need to make sure that the scientific knowledge is transferred to the public as a public knowledge.
Of course, there are a lot of studies, research, reports, but usually all of this stacks in somebody's desk but not become a public knowledge. Example of in Palu, many did know about the hazard and risk that they are living in until what it happens in 2018. So scientific knowledge also needs to go through policies as well as action. So our colleagues in Pangandaran need to make sure that there are a lot of studies, research that has been done related to that this become public knows, and this will help also in terms of risk perception. Second, tsunami events did not become a knowledge, and this is taking example in Palu. There is the 1928 and 1968 in Central Sulawesi, does not become knowledge. Of course, the knowledge goes from generations, but usually confined in only in small families, so it is not become newcomers to the city, it's past tsunami event. So Pangandaran has happened in 2006. Make sure that this is also becomes a knowledge of the public. Tsunami education materials were not based on local context. I think Rahma also mentioned about this, and this is also something that needs to be aware, especially by people in Pangandaran. As well as, of course, now we know that there is different types of tsunamis, not only earthquake. I think Rahma also mentioned about this. So lack of public knowledge of atypical tsunami is also needs to be. Yeah, so I think I'm not going to take too much time on this. So just to share, in UNESCO IOC, we have an activity what we call the Preserving Past Tsunami Information for Future Preparedness. So we are working on bringing scientific knowledge to public through three, which is it has to be science-based. So the hazard and risk knowledge needs to be based on scientific studies and research. Second, it has to be evidence-based. So we're documenting historical facts as well as survivor experience. And it should be context-based, which is we focus on the local context, characteristics, cultures, as well as language. We have done for three areas, the 1945 in Makran, close to Iran, Pakistan, India and Oman. We did the 1950 in Ambon. We did the 1992 in Flores. We have collected information of the 1994 in Banyuwangi, which is now working also on the 1968 Central Sulawesi, and we plan to do the 1996 in Biak tsunami. Another that I would like to inform, which is also relates to this community-based tsunami, we have the Tsunami Ready, which is initiated by UNESCO IOC. As you see, this is really community performance-based, and it's the important thing what I would like to stress is that this is bringing the ownerships of preparedness to the community. So this is also relates to the last mile projects maybe can connect to this activity. And based on this Tsunami Ready, we have implemented in two areas in India, which is in Odisha, in Moksipali and Musahi, and both of these two communities have received what we call the Tsunami Ready recognition from UNESCO IOC. And this is also something that maybe our friends in Pangandaran can actually take advantage of in terms of building the capacity and then getting the recognitions to make sure that the capacity will be sustained. I guess that's basically what I can share. Just go back. These are the 3 points that needs to be taken as a lesson learned from this webinar. Of course, there are many more others that can be added. Thank you, Pak Semeni.
Terima kasih Pak Ardito, thank you very much. Pak Ardito Kodijat from IoTIC and also Mrs. Rahma from ITB for the reviews of the current webinar. So before I close this session, I would like to share one photos that was sent by Mrs. Maria Usman. So this is very important photo. It was taken in 1994 during the after the tsunami in Banyuwangi. So So according to Mrs. Maria Usman, who did the survey at the time, so this baby was in the top of coconut tree for one night. So she survived. So by this time, she was supposed to be 27 years old now. So those who can find this baby and the mother, that would be very important milestone, because those are the eyewitness of the event of 1994 tsunami in Banyuwangi. So this photo was taken in Pancar Bay, Banyuwangi. So, and also I think it's very clear to memorize the event of 1994 tsunamis, and also I think this is also related to the ongoing project from the IOTIC, as Mr. Ardhito Kodijat mentioned earlier. So at the end, I would like to thank everyone for the participation, and also I would like to thank especially for all those for all the speakers for sharing the information and knowledge on tsunamis, not only on physical aspect but also on social and cultural aspect. Thank you very much, Alessandro Annunziato. Thank you very much, Mrs. Irina Rafiana. Thank you very much, Mrs. Peggy Nurhabni. Thank you very much, Mrs. Rahma Hanifa, and also thank you very much, Mr. Ardhito Kodijat. And of course, thank you very much also for Mr. Dian Novianto. Are you still there? Yes. Yes, thank you very much also for all those parties who can make this webinar possible. We would like to apologize for all the technical problems we had previously. So I hope that in the future you can join us again in the next webinar. As closing, I would like to say Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you. Bye bye. See you later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you everybody. Thank you Alessandro. Thank you.
Thank you everyone.
Bang, saya turun Bang.
Hi, Marlon. Hi, Alessandro. Thank you. Thank you. Mas Ariska. Oh, Mas Sumedi.
Bye.
Salam kenal Pak Ardhito, Alessandro, Irina.
Thank you, Alessandro.
Rama. See you in Pangandaran ya.
Oh,
Ya, pengen saya bikin Pangandaran nih.
semuanya ya.
Tunggu undangannya Pak Dian.
I'm waiting for your Puma presentation in my office. Yeah, I talked to Pak Ivan